Got some reporting on some big stock trades from Speaker Nancy Pelosi. This is from Unusual Whale Stock on Twitter. Okay, so this is actually pretty significant. She just exercised 10 million in Microsoft shares that was back in mid-March. Then, lo and behold, Microsoft landed this blockbuster $22 billion contract with the military. This is related to their augmented reality headsets for their troops over the next decade. She also apparently just bought $1 million in Roblox stock. My son, who's 7, is absolutely obsessed with that game. You can see some other big moves here involving Amazon, Facebook, Tesla, and others. And look, I mean, this is an extremely bad look, at the very least, for the Speaker of the House. And at worst, it's outright corrupt and has the potential and the appearance of potentially using insider knowledge about where the U.S. government is headed. Access to that knowledge, of course, if you're Speaker of the House, you may be able to have special insights into in order to profit massively off of your stock trades. And Nancy Pelosi, already a very wealthy woman, why are members of Congress allowed to trade stocks while they're holding public office? We covered this on the Republican side at the beginning of COVID. You had David Perdue. You had them saying to the public, like, oh, this is fine and Trump's got it under control, no problem. Meanwhile, they're dumping stocks left and right or buying stocks in things that they know are going to benefit from potential coronavirus. Again, they haven't been charged with any of this, but even the appearance of it, it is just so disgusting.
Kelly Loeffler, all of that. Full disclosure, I also bought some Roblox shares on the IPO. Big believer in the company.
My son is truly
full
obsessed
disclosure,
with the game.
like I've said, put forward. Okay, that out of the way. Now look, if you look at what happened here, the Pelosi family buys these on March 19th. March 31st, Microsoft scores a $22 billion deal over 10 years, which obviously affects the stock price. Now, as Ryan Grimm has pointed out here, which is that, well, if she had insider information, it's illegal. But if she didn't, it's not, because Congress writes their own laws about what they're required to disclose or not. They only even recently made disclosure a thing. Now look, maybe I'm crazy. I just looked it up. Nancy Pelosi is the 7th richest person in 2020 in Congress. She has a net worth of $114 million, $114.7 million. Is it so much to ask to say that the number 3 person in line for the presidency of the United States should have to liquidate their stock holdings or at the very least, not actively trade stocks while in office? Presidents put their stuff into blind trusts, which isn't enough, but is better than this. This is you're outright playing the market when you possibly could have access to non-public information. Is the FBI going to look into this? No. It's pretty hard to prove. You hear something from this person. I mean, this person is involved in writing the NDAA. This person is involved in writing the laws and the grants, which would benefit all of this. So once again, maybe I'm nuts. I just think that this is completely undermines trust in the system. Who knows if it's illegal? We'll have absolutely no idea, but it's awful convenient, right, in order to see how much money these people... Do you really need the money? No, you don't. You have $100 million, and you're like 80 years old. Like, it's enough.
Right, cool. Exactly. And also, look, the American people aren't stupid. They see the way that members of Congress come in already pretty well off, and they leave office extraordinarily wealthy. And they want to know what's going on with that. Are they just geniuses who happen to be like stock trading savants, business savants, who are able, while they're in office, to just make all these genius trades? Or is there something else going on there? And listen, especially when you're Speaker of the House, you got your hands in every single aspect of our society and our economy. This is almost like in her defense, there's almost no trades she couldn't make that you couldn't look at and go like, yeah, but you weighed in on this bill, or you could have potentially had insight into what was going on there. And that's exactly the problem. You look at this and it looks dirty, and maybe it's not. Maybe it was complete. Maybe she didn't even make the trade. Maybe she had nothing to do with it. But it looks so incredibly dirty, and it absolutely undermines trust. It's the fact that, they also, while they're in office, I actually think that this is a huge deal. They're all positioning themselves and posturing for their post-office gig in corporate America, however they're planning on cashing in. That really impacts the votes that they take and the bills that they push while they're in that public office. All of this crap needs to be completely quashed. And every single time that a president or someone comes in as a reformer claiming they're going to clean up the system, it all comes to naught. Biden did the same thing. I mean, Trump is like an obvious example. He was the worst of all time after all of his, drain the swamp crap. Biden hasn't been much better. He campaigned on restore the soul of America, and we're going to have transparency.
Yes.
We're going to have sunlight. We're going to end the corruption, all of that. Those ethical reforms have basically fallen by the wayside. We've seen precious little of a change in course from certainly the Obama years or even the Trump years. They instituted this technical ban on lobbyists serving in the administration, which they tried to get Neera Tanden to be the one to grant waivers on. Unfortunately, she was not ultimately confirmed. But even that has massive loophole for people who they technically aren't lobbyists, but they're really doing all of the same things that you do in the lobbyist industry. So it just seems like, for understandable reasons, all of these ways that our public servants cash in just completely continue to be wide open for them.